In the wake of the catastrophe caused by the Little Ice Age, from low temperatures to devastating floods, European kings faced an unprecedented crisis. Here are their most prominent direct and symbolic actions, as documented in historical records. Attempts to alleviate high prices and distribute food in England. Edward II issued decrees to stabilize grain prices, which failed due to poor harvests. In August 1315, it was recorded that the king himself was unable to find bread for his guests in St. Albans, demonstrating the depth of the crisis. The royal granaries were partially opened, but aid was mainly provided to the nobility and the church, while the peasants were left to fend for themselves. In France, Louis X attempted to invade Flanders to plunder its resources. However, his army sank in mud due to continuous rains, and he was forced to burn his supplies during the retreat. Louis imposed additional taxes on the wealthy to buy grain from other regions, but corruption led to most of it being diverted to the black market. Religious and symbolic measures. The Catholic Church organized mass prayer marches to appease God, such as the Flagellates March in Paris, where barefoot participants carried crosses to ask for an end to the disaster. In some cities, atonement rituals were held, believing the famine to be a divine punishment. Royal coronations and weddings were canceled, and court budgets were cut to divert funds toward food purchases. Social repression and elite protection in regions, such as Germany and England, laws were passed prohibiting the eating of carrion or cannibalism, with death penalties for violators, in an attempt to maintain moral order. Kings used armed forces to protect the granaries of their feudal lords, which increased peasant anger and led to local rebellions, such as the Hungry Peasants' uprisings of Flanders. Migration in response to human influxes. Fleeing peasants were barred from entering major cities, such as London and Paris, for fear of spreading disease and unrest. Some cities erected barriers and forcibly expelled the immigrants. In Scandinavia, kings such as Magnus IV of Sweden recruited fleeing peasants into border wars against Denmark as a means of relieving population pressure. Long-term reforms after the crisis. After 1322, kings like Charles IV of France encouraged the reclamation of abandoned lands and the adoption of more cold-resistant crops, such as rye. Trade routes were opened with Genoa and Venice to import grain from the Mediterranean, despite their high costs. Result: a legacy of discontent and transformations. Most of the king's measures to combat the famine failed, deepening the loss of confidence in the rulers and the church. By 1320, Europe's population had declined by 10 to 25%, and movements such as the Joachimian movement, which predicted the end of the world, emerged, paving the way for later crises such as the Black Death and the peasant revolts of the 14th century. The famine was not just a shortage of bread, but the collapse of every system that was supposed to protect us. Anonymous 14th century historian.